Okay, hi everybody. Nice to see you all here today. A couple of quick housekeeping things that I'd like to cover. I did put them in the chat box so that you can refer back to them during the webinar if you wish. So just want to go over some things here. The webinar should run for about 30 to 40 minutes, allowing for some questions, of course, at the end. Gift card rules, I know you're all going to ask me, so I'll put them up here anyway. They will be sent out after the webinar. Please allow up to a week for delivery. It is the holidays, you know how things are. Now, this webinar is only for US and Canadian residents. To qualify for the gift card, you must be a US or Canadian resident in some kind of professional role, you know, be it whether it's actual business, sales or marketing. And at the end of the webinar, when we've signed off, a short survey will appear in your browser. Please fill it out. It's quite short. I think it's 7 questions and they're all pretty easy. So don't worry about that too much. But fill it out with accurate, verifiable information. Very important, because if you don't, you won't receive the gift card, and there is no exception to that. So please bear that in mind. And that's pretty much it. So now we're going to introduce Stuart. Now, Stuart is an interesting chap. He's an award-winning veteran Silicon Valley marketer. He's also the author of the Living Brand marketing program. Now, this program has actually been added to the Smithsonian Archives, and I'll quote the Smithsonian on this. They call it a model for introducing companies to new markets. So pretty good stuff, I think you'll agree. It's also taught at Wharton and Harvard business schools, and Stuart's going to tell you a little bit more about it. So thank you, Stuart, very much for being with us here today, and you have the floor. The floor is yours, as they say.
Well, Gary, thank you for such a great introduction. Very, very flattering. It's weird to hear yourself described in terms like that, but very flattering. So thank you.
You're welcome.
When we begin this today, I'm actually going to go dark on my screen because it's been proven that people learn better when they don't have people looking at them while they're going through a Zoom educational scene. So I'm going to go dark right now and introduce you to the program. So I'm going to stop video and start sharing my screen. And let's see. There we go. So Gary, are you seeing this?
Yes, it's perfect. Yeah, it's right in the center of the screen. Yep, very clear. I can hear you clearly, so you're good.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Gary. Yeah, this has been a day where there's been some technical issues, to say the least. One thing to note is that I will not be taking questions live during this presentation, but Gary will be able to aggregate them for me, and I'll be able to pick them up later. And that allows us to focus in on flow of the presentation here. So who am I? I am Stuart McFall. I run a full-service marketing agency in San Francisco. I have about 25 years plus experience in marketing, and I'll be honest with you, I am a marketing wonk. I've spent the last several years finessing a marketing success system called Living Brand, which you'll hear a bit about today. And it's based on years of study on what works for the world's most successful brands, what works for them to make them achieve success and stay successful. And with this system, I've been able to help about 200 companies worldwide achieve success, including billion-dollar buyouts and acquisitions by major players like Amazon and Apple. And that's just the start of the alphabet. As Gary noted, or no, you didn't know, you talked about the system, but I have just actually finished writing a book about the system that I'm hoping to release sometime in 2024. Some of the things that we're going to be talking about today actually come from the book. And finally, I appreciate your taking the time today and want to offer you my time So always feel free to text me at the number that you see here if there's any way that I can help you in the future. So just what is today about? We're going to unpack a lot today. We're going to ask and answer the following questions. Successful brands make it through recessions again and again. The answer is yes. Is it hard for them? Yes, because it demands discipline, and no, because they've stayed successful by continuing to be disciplined. Can anybody do it? Yes. And do you need to do it? Well, if you have a company, yes. Here's why. Winter is coming. In fact, it's already here. Today, we're living in what they call a vibecession, where people behave like it's a recession, but it's actually not. Now, is there going to be a recession in the next several months? Nobody knows. But the fact is, the mindset is much more recession inclined. So, what happens to cause a recession mindset? Today, really simply, it's uncertainty. Whereas a recession is often caused by several social, business, or economic problems happening at once, we haven't necessarily experienced that yet. But people and businesses are holding their breath. We've seen many signs, ranging from social unrest and upheaval to overinvestment in marginal businesses, over-speculation, and overextension of credit. Results are generally a decline in sales, which we aren't having, but the economic environment today isn't celebrating that. Instead, we're seeing many of the fallouts of recession thinking, with the financial effect exacerbating by less opportunity for borrowing. Costs are typically controlled by tightening expenditures on multiple fronts during this time. So, how does this affect early stage or growing businesses? And this includes startup groups within large companies. Well, while large companies are equipped to tighten expenditures, cuts, delays, and layoffs are standard. Now, by contrast, smaller companies don't have this option to streamline, and they're often forced to borrow at high rates or close up shop. But companies that strategically plan can establish a clear sense of their value and win. Now, I know there are a lot of tech people here today. How does this affect tech companies in particular? As I just said, while some businesses suffer, those that prove their value can often win. Larger companies tend to invest more in expansion by acquisition during recessions, by exploring investments in R&D and partnering with smaller companies and acquiring talent. And understanding this and responding to the zeitgeist is critical, because the opportunities to make money may only appear difficult, especially for bleeding edge solutions. The fact is, a recession, actual or just a mindset, presents opportunities for companies of all sizes. Startups that determine and differentiate their value, package, prove, and promote it are ripe for acquisition. Fast growth companies also package, prove, and promote their value, but they also very often have the additional advantage of being a proven partner, which can lead to even more fruitful partnership opportunity in the future. And large companies can also follow this approach, but with a twist. They can pack their value proposition, promote, and partner, but their focus on their desire to invest in new technologies, acquiring new opportunities to expand their business. But in the case of everyone here, the key is to package themselves, to prove their value, and promote it like hell. And that, everybody, is exactly what marketing does. Our first polling question is the simplest. At what stage are you in your growth? Are you in the startup or seed stage, a growth or VC back stage, Or are you larger, more established, and are open to acquiring companies? Like I noted, startups will package and promote. Growth companies will package, promote, and partner. And larger companies will do the same, but will also invest. And this spells great opportunities for startups. So regardless of your stage, you have the opportunity to package, promote, and market yourself successfully in a down market. You just need to set yourself up to succeed. And you're starting that by attending this session today. So with the recession offering so much opportunity, what do you have to be afraid of? Well, again, to quote Game of Thrones, there's no shame in fear. No reason why you should be ashamed of feeling fearful or uncertain. But the problem is most companies aren't prepared to face it. What matters is how we decide to face it, because you can create your own marketing reality. Here's marketing reality as it is today. Most of the way people are marketing today are losing the battle. But you can start winning if you start addressing two things. The first is what I call transactional trauma. Companies have turned their most important relationships into transactional relationships. Usually driven by investors looking for growth, they've relied heavily on digital tools to continually acquire new customers, but failed to cultivate the loyalty of existing customers. And this is a big mistake because on average, 80% of a company's revenue is generated by 20% of its current customers, who, by the way, also spend an average of 67% more than new customers do. Now, by making this relationship transactional, the customer isn't only not engaged, in fact, they feel used and often feel disengaged. And their discouragement ranges from simple disappointment with how a company responds. For example, 51% of customers typically are disappointed by how a company responds to them, to a sincere belief that the company isn't even trying to understand what they want, which according to one survey accounts for 90% of customers. So the potential loyalty you've earned has gone by the wayside. And what shouldn't be surprising is that this transactional relationship approach inadvertently waterfalls over to your employees, who also see things as being transactional. And in a virtual work world, this makes it even more difficult to have employees who represent your brand consistently. Most don't. Or to have employees who even plan to stick around when you need them. The second thing to understand is how marketing itself is evolving. Transactional marketing, which we just talked about, is the child of what we call marketing 2.0, which is our current marketing stage. We focus not on the customer, but what we wanted to sell and validated our performance using digital tools and data. We focused on customer acquisition before customer relationship. And we talked a good game using words like engagement, one-to-one connection, and personalization. But did we really foster a relationship? In most cases, we didn't. We pushed hard, but we didn't close the relationship loop. Now today, marketing 3.0 is starting to evolve, and we're trying to correct what we did wrong. We're acting smarter by doing something simple like asking the customer what they want, concentrating on providing the outcomes and value that they want to achieve. Instead of talking about how innovative we are, we're talking about how we're always getting better, working with them so that we can prove a long-term value in a long-term relationship. And we're focusing on values-based approaches that build long-term relationships. A sense of social responsibility and emotional connection, really caring about them, and working together to create something. These are the hallmarks of genuine relationships. Our future success is knowing the real value you provide, connecting it to the value your customer really wants, and reinforcing it with acting on shared values. This is an authentic relationship. And it's no wonder why authentic is Merriam-Webster Dictionary's word of the year, because it's your future. It's a more complex play, but it's much more rewarding for everyone involved. And as a coda, there is some good news about AI. We talk about AI as being, the promise of a dystopian future, but the fact is AI coming into play is going to give us greater speed, greater smarts that will help build and support these new marketing relationships. So how do we get there? How do we make more money with customers willing to pay 35% more or more for your product or service? How do we attract new and better customers and employees with 80% of your customers having deep loyalty and 73% even willing to forgive a misdeed? How do we laser focus your marketing and recruiting spend? By stopping scattershot marketing and focusing only on what works. And then finally, how do we steal market share, even from your largest competitors? This is all possible now. And today we're getting started on this. So here's your first step. Form an eternal alliance between finance, marketing, and HR, which, as you're going to see, are the three critical groups to help you through a downturn. Now, I'm recommending finance take the lead in recession planning because, that would be expected. Finance should take the lead, cooperation with marketing. And start talking not only about the upcoming potential restrictions that we have in marketing, but the opportunities and proactive plans that you can do right now. And we'll be talking about a lot of these today. It was in one of the earlier recessions that I launched a new tech company that proved so successful. A year later, the Smithsonian asked if they could add the marketing model that we're talking about today to their business archives. Now, to them, the approach was novel and different. They hadn't seen anything like it. And I learned later it was one of the very first empathy-based marketing programs. And we're going to be talking about the power of empathy and its different types in just a bit. So I'm going to stop and take a sip of water really quickly. Thank you. The first value that we're going to measure is purpose. This is the foundation. It's the reason you're doing your business based on your genuine nature, your belief, your values. It's based on who you authentically are. It's knowing who you want to be when you grow up. It's an aspirational reason for your business. It's grounded in humanity and inspires a call to action for your customers and employees. This is the ideal that you should always aim for in any company. It's more than mission, it's passion. Purpose is much, much more than mission. It's fueled by passion. And an easy way to understand this is to watch a Liam Neeson movie. So in almost every Liam Neeson movie, he has a mission. As a cop, I want to rid this town of criminals. But then something happens that changes his mission to purpose. So someone comes and kills his friends or kills his family, and that mission becomes purpose. So now his purpose is that he wants to rid this town of criminals who killed my family. You can feel the difference. The personalization of purpose underscores its importance. Purpose is almost always personal. It's based on experience, positive or negative. And purpose may not come to you immediately. It may be a sentiment that develops over time and experience, like Liam Neeson does in his movies. And what's best is that purpose attracts and keeps supporters. customers, to employees, to investors. Now, from a business standpoint, purpose is important because it adds real value. Purpose-driven companies are typically 42% more successful than competitors just by stating their purpose. And then those that build programs to support that purpose are an additional 42% more successful. It's crazy. Over a 10-year period, stock and purpose-driven companies outperformed competitors by 12 times. In the 2008 recession, purpose-driven companies experienced a 51% annual growth rate. And in the last recession, purpose-driven companies were 63% more likely to survive than their non-purpose-driven competitors. Some good examples of purpose-driven companies include the following. Patagonia, you probably know this, is probably the world's top purpose-driven brand. You probably saw recently that they'll be taking the company's assets ultimately to benefit climate change. But did you know that they once killed a product that was worth hundreds of millions of dollars to them annually in revenue simply because they could not make it in a climate-friendly fashion? That's being true to purpose. Burt's Bees follows a similar formula. Despite being owned by Clorox, they stick to their original purpose by posting an annual environmental impact report on their website that says not only what they've done, but more importantly, what they can do better. Zappos took a bottom-up approach to purpose by asking its employees what its purpose should be, then benchmarked it, now use them as guidelines to run the company. 3PAR is a former client of mine. They were a $60 million network storage company, but they seemed stuck. And when we learned that virtually all the cloud-based business transactions were processed by their servers, we created a purpose-driven message for them. That 3PAR's mission was to make cloud-based businesses successful. And within weeks, they became subjects of a bidding war between HP and Dell that got them acquired for over $2 billion. And they are now part of Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. So, as the anti-recession leader in your company, your next step is to talk with marketing and HR. If this is finance, marketing, and HR, talk about tapping into your purpose and doubling down on it. And you can use this to reach out to customers now and help start making your relationship less transactional. And you can inspire employees to get excited about the company again. You can build a program around which you can rally your company and customers and engage them even more deeply by creating an advisory board where you get everyone engaged as active participants with your company and its future. If there's one thing that will make a difference for you, this is it, and I know it. I've done it many, many times, and in fact, recently built an advisory board that just by the presence of those people helped double the company's valuation. Our next polling question is designed to help you understand where you stand on the purpose spectrum. So take a look at the 10 choices below and choose the number that best fits you. For example, if you have number 2, we have a written purpose statement, but nothing else. Write down the number 2 and keep score. The more things you have in place, the higher your score. But don't be concerned about being too low. It just tells you that you have more work to do. And by the way, the average score for a startup company hovers at a 3, and a winning brand is typically an 8 or higher. But purpose isn't everything. It's just the start. Purpose just lays the foundation for a set of connected expectations and opportunities with our key audiences. The good news is that the process can be done systematically in a series of promise and deliver scenarios. And in a recession, this is really important. With less money to spend, people need to feel they can trust you to deliver optimal value and service consistently. And the key word is trust, which is the foundation to partnership. Once you know your purpose, you can forge truly successful, trust-based partnerships with your employees and customers. That's our next step. You want to connect your purpose with like-minded partners. And as you go about that, here are some things that you really need to consider. Partnership in this sense is very much like partnership in a marriage. In fact, I use marriage analogies all the time when describing partnerships. Like marriage is to your personal relationship, your customer relationship in business may be the most significant relationship you have. And just as spouses like each other, customers like to like companies that know themselves, act authentically, and have values that sync with their own. If you know your purpose, you're already partway there. Understand that customers want to be courted, treated, honored, elevated, just like people do in a marriage situation. But unlike most marriages, you need to make room for one more, your employees, because now your customers are as significant as your employees and ideally should be treated with the same considerations, being courted, treated, honored, and elevated. If you don't, you're likely to see the same behavior from employees that customers can exhibit. At worst, they can leave you, or almost as troublesome, they can stay, but no longer contribute, which is what quiet quitting is all about. So here's the big surprise. You're in a throuple. If you're doing it right, you have to realize you're in partnership with both your customer and employees. So how can you ensure that you're developing the best kind of relationship, best kind of empathetic relationship with your customers and employees? And when I say the right kind of empathetic relationship, I do mean the right kind. In fact, there are 4 kinds of empathetic relationships you can have, and only one of them really works in the long term. Now, going from left to right, at the low end is what we call cognitive empathy, where you understand how your customer feels, but you just don't feel the same. And it's a highly manipulative form of empathy that you see used in politics, in some religions, and quite honestly, in sociopathic behavior. And for those of you who wonder, yes, I'm kind of amused by seeing this group lumped together. The next form of empathy is emotional empathy. You simply share the same feelings as your customer. I call this Hallmark channel empathy because you really don't do anything with those feelings. You just kind of wallow in. The next type is compassionate empathy. And this is where you share the same feelings and actually want to do something, usually wanting to help someone. But it's very one-sided, with one side wanting to help and the other just accepting. And it creates an imbalanced relationship that can often result in one side feeling taken advantage of. The final form of empathy, productive empathy, is really the best form. It's where both sides acknowledge that they share the same feelings, then work to build something together. So what's interesting here is to understand that if you have empathy, it doesn't necessarily mean it's well-meaning. It just means that you understand the other party. And as you can see, as we went from left to right, that the first 3 types of empathy aren't very great. Cognitive can be predatory, emotional can be passive, compassionate can be very parental. The only real partnership is produced in a productive, empathetic relationship. If you establish a productive, empathetic relationship, you're going to see results. You're going to see common commitment, common goals. And the result of this connection is that your customers and employees will watch your backs, and they'll even extend you forgiveness if you make a mistake. During COVID, we had some great opportunities for companies to demonstrate their empathy. Some of these include JetBlue, which arose the top position of airline brands by consciously deciding to become America's favorite airline by bringing humanity back to air travel. And in doing so, they eclipsed all others, including the longtime leader Southwest, which, as we all know, by acting in contradiction to the brand persona they nurtured for decades became a cautionary tale of what not to do. During COVID also, IKEA ads focused on helping you make your lockdown space more beautiful and fun. But the last two, I think, are the more significant. They put their money where their mouth is. Airbnb used more than $1 billion of its funding to provide refunds to guests and another $250 million to help hosts because they weren't seeing business. And Hotels.com actually went contrary to their message by encouraging people to stay home if they were concerned for their health. And that cost the company millions, but created an additional, multiple more in goodwill. So how can you help your company partner better? The key is to continue to build on the purpose and the advisory board started earlier by developing programs that continually educate employees on your purpose and values. But now you can get them engaged more deeply by asking them to create their own initiatives. So give them a sense of ownership and then incent them through recognition or rewards to helping those values to life. Our next polling question is similar to the previous one, but instead it's asking where you stand in terms of partnerships. And again, choose the statement that best matches where you are and input the corresponding number in the poll. Now, don't be embarrassed if the number is low. It just means you have an opportunity to do better. The average score is 5 or 6 for a startup, 9 to 10 for a brand. Now, I'll give you some additional food for thought. If the empathetic partnership you choose is cognitive empathy, I'd subtract 5 points because in the long run, in a cognitive empathy relationship, you're setting yourself up for failure. Once you formed a successful partnership, just like marriage, you've got to deliver the goods, which means adding value to the relationship in ways your customer values. Fortunately, the goods the customer values aren't hard to figure out. I call them superpowers for short, and that when they are brought to a customer relationship, they take things to a whole new level. The final segment we're considering today, the core of developing a living brand of your own, is to understand the unique powers you can tap into and bring it to your customer and employee relationships to take them to the next level. Now, to borrow again from the marriage analogies, these are the unique values you bring to the relationship that make your partner love and appreciate you even more. And I call these superpowers because they're very much like superhero powers you read about in graphic novels. Some are apparent, some are hidden, and some are nascent and just need to be developed. But I'm going to walk you through this list. So how do we define these? Authenticity is knowing who you are and define yourself by those qualities. Integrity is acting as who you are or walking your talk. Distinction is being unique and standing out in a positive way. Relevance is making yourself pertinent to your audiences in an impactful way. Vibrance is having a high level of positive, empathetic interaction with your audience. Intelligence is positively influencing your audience or industry by bringing them valuable information and insights. Generosity is giving to your community in a way that benefits them. Value is having the ongoing ability to be able to prove your worth or excellence as a business. Consistency is always behaving in a reliable way that reflects authenticity and integrity. And finally, and this is important during recession times, resilience is the ability to be flexible, adjust to change while maintaining your integrity. And this is particularly crucial for an early stage company during a downturn. Tapping into these superpowers can be, well, super powerful for a company. By building programs and activities around one or more of these powers, the powers can deepen and enrich the perception of the brand. So, for example, Etsy tapped into the power of distinction by creating a marketplace that put the hands-on creator first versus Amazon, which put the market first. Vaseline leveraged its relevant superpower with its See My Skin initiative, which went beyond showing racial diversity to focus on the beauty of the multiple variations of our human skin condition. And something we did, we got Hitachi to flex its industry intelligence superpower that ultimately made the head of the SEC declare Hitachi the leader in financial reporting technology. And in another thing we did, Evie, which was a small artificial intelligence app competitive to Siri, we built a resilience strategy to offset a challenge for Apple that nearly killed the company. And as a result of having that resilience strategy, Evie not only survived, but she changed her name when she was sold to Amazon and became the brain of Alexa. As you continue your anti-recession leadership, have finance, marketing, and HR work together to determine what your superpowers are. But here's a tip. They're related to your purpose. Work with marketing to package into a tight story and start promoting them heavily to prove the hard value you bring. This is the time when smart companies double down and invest more in marketing to get market share. And this is a little known fact, but companies that spend more on marketing in recessions not only win business, but win market share for competitors. The most glaring examples happened during the Depression, because this is exactly how Kellogg beat Post cereals and how Elizabeth Arden became a household name instead of Helena Rubinstein. The final polling question here is similar to the last two, asking you to choose the statement that best reflects your status related to your powers and input the corresponding number in your score. In this case, most startups tend to get lower numbers because they simply don't understand which powers they can leverage. Successful brands, on the other hand, have real clarity on the ones that work for them and can get higher scores. But not knowing or fully understanding the real powers you have is a terrific opportunity for you to work with someone like me who can help you make a real impact in the marketplace. I'm going to stop and take another sip of water. Now, we've used examples of big companies putting purpose, empathetic partnerships, and their superpowers to work. However, that may have you reasonably ask, how does that apply to me when our company is small and challenged? So, I'll give you an example. During a recession, I was approached by a group of investors who wanted to launch a dinnerware company that's everyday dishes. Now, if you know the dinnerware space, you know it's challenged on a number of fronts. Two companies own 85% of the market, and there's literally hundreds of small-time companies. It's the ultimate parity product. A dish is a dish is a dish. And there has been no innovation in the industry for literally centuries. But these guys wanted to launch a company. And I knew the only differentiator that they could make would be how the company was marketed. So I agreed to help them with one condition, that I could base the entire marketing program on my living brand process, and they agreed. So I assembled the same elements in many of the same ways that we just discussed, and we launched the company. In their case, we tapped into every superpower we could to find ways that could uniquely reflect the company. And so here are some of the ways in which we did it. Now, the results were terrific. In less than 6 months, we had a deal with Walmart. In 7 months, Walmart tried to buy the company. Within a year, it was named one of the most innovative companies in the housewares industry, and they achieved the exit they wanted, which was to be purchased for a really good price by one of the two biggie companies that owned the market. And I'm ending with this case study to make a point. Even in a recession, in the headwinds of mighty industry challenges, even when you have a parity product, this living brand system works. So let's assume you have a really competitive product or service, and you understand explicitly what to do in each marketing stage. You know how to define and tap into your purpose. You know how to take your customers on the journeys they want to take. You understand how to tap into your real superpowers, and you understand how to execute them as a system. What can stop you? Only yourself. So I want to conclude today with that sense. I would love to be able to help anybody who might be interested in having a conversation. If you want to meet and explore this further, you can scan the link there and set up a call on my calendar, or you can simply scan the other and add my contact information to your contact database. And that is it. And I'll stop the share and go back on video. And I'm here to answer any questions anybody has.
That's great. Thank you very much, Stuart. That was very informative indeed. And I know that people have a tendency to think of questions after we wrap up. I've had that many times. So I did add an extra question to the survey, which is, do you have any questions? So if you do, then we'll contact you and answer it. I've had that happen so many times where nobody has a question, and then afterwards I've got like 50. You know, people calling me up. So kind of wanted to streamline that a little bit. So if anybody has an immediate question, I mean, we'll unmute you if you like. We don't mind. Yeah, but if you're shy, you can type it into the chat box, and if not, you can use the survey, which will magically appear in your browser when we sign off. So watch for that and make sure you fill it out for several reasons. One is that we'd like to obviously have the opportunity to work with you. And also, of course, I know you want to get that gift card, so you need to fill that form out with accurate, verifiable information. And yeah, that's pretty much it, really. I think it was very interesting. I tell you, well, one bizarre thought I had when you were talking about hotels.com doing the opposite to what their business strategy was. And I thought, Budweiser. I mean, I don't know if this is a government mandated thing or not. Maybe it is, and I'm talking rubbish, but please drink responsibly. Shouldn't it responsibly? Shouldn't their goal be like drink yourself happy or something, or you know? But that drink responsibly is against selling alcohol. I mean, I know it sounds a bit silly, but do they have to do that? Was that a marketing thing?
No, I actually think that's very, very good marketing. What's very interesting is that if you want to stand out versus the competition, always come out with a statement or a position that is contrary to what people would traditionally expect from you, but contrary in a good way, not contrary in a bad way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not telling anybody to drink excessively, but I'm just saying that's interesting because that goes against what they actually want to do. They want to sell, I'm sure, as much beer as they can, but yeah, in a way that appears to be caring, or at least certainly good advice. But I don't know, just stuck in my head. It's probably silly, but
yeah, no, I don't think it's silly at all. I think anytime you present the impression that you are creating a disadvantageous situation for yourself by doing something, yet you're doing it for a greater good, it always plays to your benefit. There's always a positive payoff related to that.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing it up.
That's all right. It just flashed in my head when you were talking. Jordan just asked, hope we can get the recorded video. Yeah, in case we missed something. Absolutely. Anyone who wants the video, again, put it in the survey. You can add anything you like to the survey. I mean, just put it on one of the question lines, but please send video. And we'll make sure we do. It might take us a couple of days because the time of year it is, and we've got quite a few people on here to follow up with. But again, thank you. Great turnout. Thank you very much, Stuart. That was great, and it was an honor and a pleasure to have you on here. As someone has
Thank you.
It's
a pleasure for me, and I will say to anybody who doesn't get their questions in the survey, if you take a look at the recording afterwards or anything, just get a hold of me, and I'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
Absolutely, and appreciate that. And I'm going to put just quickly my number in there as well. If you have any questions for me afterwards, or you want to, set up something with Stuart, you're welcome to call me as well. I'll just put my 888 number in there, so you all have that. We're now going to wrap up. So watch for that survey. I'm going to stop recording right now. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye for now.